Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the panel discussion of the 25th DM Harish Memorial Government Law College Moot Court Competition 2024. We kindly request all our respected guests to put their mobile phones on silent before we begin. To begin the discussion on a solemn note, we shall commence with the lighting of the lamp. I request all our esteemed dignitaries to kindly come forward for the same.
I would like to request our dignitaries to take their place on the stage. On behalf of the Moot Court Association of Government Law College and the DM Harish Foundation, we'd like to extend a very warm welcome to everyone present here for the panel discussion of the 25th DM Harish Memorial Government Law College Moot Court Competition 2024. Government Law College has been hosting India's first ever international moot court competition in association with the DM Harish Foundation for over 2 decades now. Since its inception, the moot has become widely acclaimed amongst law schools within the nation and beyond. We'd now like to call upon our professor in charge, Assistant Professor Nuzhat Sheikh, to deliver a welcome address to our guests and audience for the evening.
Good evening, everyone. Respected Principal Dr. Asmita Vaidya, though she'll be joining us a little late today. Respected panelist, moderator Mr. Harish Jagtiani, the panelist Mr. Milind Devra, Dr. Prasad Karande, Mr. Anand Goenka, Mr. Jagdish Moorjani, and Professor Kishu Daswani, respected faculty members, and my dear students. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all for this panel discussion and the 25th D.M. Harish Memorial Government Law College Moot Court Competition 2024, commemorating the legacy of the late Mr. D.M. Harish, a luminary in Indian legal circle, hosted annually by the Government Law College Mumbai and the D.M. Harish Foundation. This prestigious moot court competition attracts participation from leading law colleges worldwide. The today's topic for panel discussion is the benefit and the risk of artificial intelligence, creator or destroyer. Recognizing the increasing role of artificial intelligence in our lives and debating the ethical, privacy and legal aspects, artificial intelligence is of two words. So, first is artificial and the second is intelligence. So, artificial means man-made and the intelligence means the capacity of thinking. So, we can define artificial intelligence as the branch of computer science by which we can develop intelligent machines who can behave like human beings, think like human, and make decisions as per the logic programs in memory. Artificial intelligence is the technology which is very helpful for the human being. By using this technology, the hard work of human can be managed mechanically. The artificial intelligence can be used in healthcare, education, in electronics, software development, pharmacies, games, engineering, communication and development. So artificial intelligence is based on science and technology on disciplines like information technology, biology, psychology, mathematics, etc. And the main advantage of artificial intelligence is the work will be accurate and time saving. So this is the new technology with leading inventions of the 21st century taking control of our lives knowingly or unknowingly. So from the Google Map voice control assistance to Siri and Alexa helping us on daily basis in various forms and formats, combining technologies like natural language processing, natural language generation, machine learning algorithm and the computer vision, artificial intelligence tools can help business thrive in the digital landscape. ChatGPT and driverless vehicle are few of such examples. And the internet is bombarded with thousands of new technology applications defying the boundaries of nations and state theories and expressing the concern over the sovereignty of the nations, security and the integrity of the nation. The applications access into a private, sensitive and the financial data is the major concern with artificial intelligence too. So on this note, I would welcome all the panelists for this panel discussion. I thank the Honorable Principal Dr. Asmita Vaidya Madam and the organizing committee for giving me an opportunity to deliver the welcome speech. I once again welcome all the panelists and the dignitaries on behalf of the Government Law College Mumbai. We are privileged to have you with us, sir. I would like to end up with a quote. Artificial intelligence is not a substitute for human intelligence. It is a tool to amplify human creativity and ingenuity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your lovely note, ma'am. The D.M. Harish Memorial Moot Court Competition is amongst the oldest and the most prestigious moots in the country. Our topic of discussion for this evening is the benefits and the risks of artificial intelligence, creator or destroyer. Recognizing the increasing role of AI in our lives and debating the ethical, privacy and legal aspects. As we witness the unprecedented growth of artificial intelligence and its integration into various aspects of our lives, it's imperative to pause and reflect on the profound impact it has, both positively and potentially destructively. Our esteemed panelists will navigate through these complexities, offering insights and engaging in critical discourse as we strive to better understand the role of AI as either a creator of boundless opportunities or a potential harbinger of unintended consequences.
Our first panelist for the evening is Mr. Milind Deora. Mr. Deora is a prominent figure in Indian politics. Having served as a Member of Parliament from South Mumbai, as a Minister of State for Communications and Information Technology, he spearheaded advancements in the telecommunications sector, promoting digital connectivity and innovation nationwide. Furthermore, Sir is a successful entrepreneur and a vocal advocate for societal issues, including youth empowerment and environmental sustainability. I now request Mr. Anil Harish to felicitate Mr. Deora.
Thank you, sir. Our next panelist, Mr. Anant Goenka, is the Executive Director of the Indian Express Group. He holds degrees in brand management from the Marshall School of Business and print journalism from the Annenberg School of Journalism at the University of California, where he was awarded a Dean's Scholarship. Under his leadership, the Indian Express Group has expanded its digital business while upholding values of fairness, accuracy, and courage instilled by his grandfather, Mr. Ramnath Goenka. The Economic Times recognized him as India's 40 under 40 business leaders. He has also received IAA's Global Compass Award and the Media Entrepreneur of the Year Award from News 24 and Hello Magazine. Now I'd like to call upon Assistant Professor Sheikh Nuzhat to felicitate our panelist.
Today, we also have Mr. Anantaraman Balakrishnan, the Sales Director at Google Cloud India, boasting 25 years of comprehensive experience, with a remarkable 19 plus years dedicated to multinational corporations. With a background in managing customer support functions for over 6 years, he excels in handling large and intricate deals and has successfully managed global accounts. His extensive 21-year tenure in India and 4 years in Singapore showcases prowess in leading roles at an international level. He is also known for building sustainable and high-performance teams which excel in CXO level management. I would now like to call upon our General Secretary, Ms. Vidula Baze, to felicitate Ms. Balakrishnan.
Our next panelist is Mr. Jagdish Moorjandani. As a co-founder of Cities Tech since its inception in 2005, he has played a pivotal role in establishing the company as a leading global provider of technology-based services and solutions in the healthcare sector. Over the years, he has demonstrated exemplary leadership as a Chief Operating Officer overseeing global service delivery and leading a team of over 5,000 healthcare and technology professionals. Furthermore, he co-founded TransWorks in 1999, a business process outsourcing company that was later transcended into the Aditya Birla Group. He earned his LLB degree from Government Law College, Mumbai University, in addition to a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai, and also earned a master's degree from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I would like to now call upon the Assistant General Secretary of the Moot Court Association, Ms. Drishti Pratrawala, to felicitate Mr. Moorjandani.
Today, we also have with us Dr. Prasad Karande, a distinguished scholar and accomplished professional in the field of production engineering. Dr. Karande's journey of academic excellence began at the FRCR College of Engineering in Mumbai, where he earned his master's, laying the foundation for his illustrious career. Dr. Karande's dedication to scholarly pursuits is exemplified by his notable achievements, including being a recipient of the Best Track Paper Award at the Second European Union IEOM Conference in Paris. With a profound understanding of mechanical engineering principles and a demonstrated proficiency in research methodologies, Dr. Karande is a respected authority in his field. May I now request the Treasurer of the Moot Court Association, Mr. Nikhil Padan, to felicitate Dr. Karande.
Our next and final panelist for the evening is Professor Kishu Daswani. Professor Daswani is an internationally recognized academician in the field of law. He has been a professor at Government Law College for more than 30 years. He has contributed as a professor at many prestigious colleges and universities across the world. Professor Daswani has been an unwavering pillar of support for this committee, guiding us with immense experience that he has garnered over his years of teaching. His willingness to help out his students is of great value to this college, and we are grateful to Professor Daswani for always being so accommodating and constantly encouraging us to do better. May I now request Mr. Karan Nair, a senior core member of the Moot Court Association, to felicitate Professor Daswani.
I would now like to introduce our moderator for the evening's panel discussion, Mr. Harish. Mr. Jagtiani is a senior advocate at the Honorable Bombay High Court, specializing in litigation and arbitration. He is the founder of Oasis Counsel and Advisory. With a master's degree in constitutional and international law, he was designated with the title of senior advocate in 1994. He is a key member of legal associations like the Supreme Court Bar Association and the Bombay Bar Association, boasting an impressive career, having represented major banks, corporations, and public figures. He excelled in diverse disputes, from commercial and constitutional to matrimonial and tax-related matters. As a respected presence in the international arbitration fraternity, he has notably served clients at renowned forums such as the ICC, the LCIA, the SIAC, and the DIAC. May I now request Ms. Nishtha Gada, a senior member of the Moot Court Association, to felicitate Mr. Jagtiani.
I would now like to call upon Mr. Agastya Vijaya Raghavan, a senior core member of the Moot Court Association, to felicitate our assistant professor, Ms. Nuzhat Sheikh.
It is indeed an honor to host such an industrious panel today. On that note, we shall now begin with the panel discussion.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you all for having shown the courage to invite me to moderate on this panel discussion. The topic is the benefits and risks of AI, creator or destroyer. As far as I'm concerned, in my case, I think AI stands for absolutely ignorant. But nonetheless, I'm happy to be here in the midst of such illustrious panelists, and I expect to go back a little more educated. Now, actually, there is very little artificiality about AI. If ever there was a misnomer attached to an acronym, this is it. If one ponders and thinks of how our lives are changing with the advent of AI and the yet unforeseen and unimaginable consequences that this technology will unleash in the real world, one would have to drop the prefix and epithet artificial. AI is as significant as Einstein's exposition of quantum physics or the discovery of penicillin, which altered our existence in every which way. AI is a know-all, but we are told that it is also hallucinatory. So how do we guard against misinformation and false information being spread? There is a famous quote which goes something like this: a lie spreads halfway around the world before truth can get its pants on. We are told by experts that human biases and prejudices will get amplified and exacerbated as AI machine learning is gleaned from data generated from human surveillance. AI has already triggered off the filing of major lawsuits by New York Times and visionary authors such as John Grisham for the unauthorized use of copyright materials for building LLM, that's large language models. Elon Musk has filed a suit against OpenAI and its founders, Sam Altman, that his company has deviated from the original objective of serving humanity, and now its only objective is to reap profits. Bill Gates, during his recent interaction in India, has said that AI can be transformative and beneficial in India in the field of medical, healthcare, and agriculture. But he also talks of the mysteries of AI and its potential for the welfare of humanity. This reminds me of my early science fiction reading literature which I read in my school days, particularly books by Isaac Asimov and Arthur Clarke and others. Asimov wrote on robots in a celebrated book called I, Robot. In this book, he creates a robot whose purpose is to serve humanity. The robot functions within the interplay of three commands in order of priority, namely that it shall not harm humans, that it shall not harm a human being, it shall not harm itself, and that it shall always obey the command of its master unless that command violates the first two commands. Now AI, unfortunately, as we know it and understand, is today is not imbued with any such benevolent checks and balances, and can be used to propagate evil designs at the instance of its master. As such, there is no safeguard against sinister deployment of AI, which can be used and is being used as weapons of war. The moot question is, how can AI be harnessed only for the benefit and progress of mankind, and how its pernicious and sinister capabilities can be checked or curtailed? These are some of the issues which I am sure our panelists are going to address. Human intelligence, when embraced in compassion, has the capacity to harness AI for altruistic purposes. But remove compassion and ethics, and we are staring at the annihilation of mankind. Sri Aurobindo once said, when I realized that with the help of intelligence, one could justify just about anything, I lost my respect for intelligence. What AI needs is a heart. Unfortunately, AI is not and will not be the preserve of only people with a heart. It's available to all and sundry, which includes despots and terrorist organizations. AI has now been unleashed, and its effects, both good and evil, are anything but artificial or illusory. With these opening remarks, I'd like to now begin asking some questions to the panelists, and then when I've asked a few, I will leave it to the panelists also to have an exchange intersay so that they may ask questions of other panels. And finally, in the last 15 minutes, I'm told by the organizers that we will throw this open to the audience so that you may ask your questions. Except when you do that, what I'll request you to do is, you'll be given a mic, you get up, announce your name and announce the year in which you're studying, and ask a question and name the panelist from whom you wish to elicit the answer. So with that, I'll first begin by asking my first question to Mr. Bala. Mr. Bala, Google and its CEO, that's Sundar Pichai, have been in the limelight relating to the AI platform Gemini, which has been reprimanded for giving unsubstantiated answers to sensitive questions about the Prime Minister. What are the implications of the new government's advisory regarding permission to be taken before launching the platform and consent from the users to be given? And whilst you're at it, could you also just tell us that how is Gemini different from Chatbox?
Thanks sir, for the question. So I just have the Gemini screen open on my phone, just to read out something. Right? So it says Gemini may display inaccurate info, including about people. So double check its responses. And it also says that it could make offensive statements. And the reason for this is not limited to Gemini. This is limited to all large language models. So just to give a sense of, a very quick sense of what large language models are, right? AI, as Sir spoke about artificial intelligence, has more modules to it. One module is called deep learning, which is about use of neural networks to solve problems and deep problems. And then you have what is called as NLP, and that is natural language processing. And natural language processing is what all of us use in what we call as generative AI today. Beyond natural language processing is what you have as large language models. Now, large language models is like a house which can truly keep the whole world inside it. Now, what that means is that it can have 3, 4, 5 billion parameters which can be fed into it, which could be related to agriculture, related to farming, related to people, related to countries, related to any possible parameter which could be there. It could be related to mathematics, physics, anything. And people who ask the question are supposed to get an answer. Now, add visual imagery to it, add code, software code to it, and then you know how complex this entire thing can be. And therefore, it's an evolutionary phase. I'll give you one more example, right? If you went to many parts of India, at least not in your time, but in our time, you used to have what is called as voltage stabilizers. The voltage stabilizers were kept because if you had fridges or other electric items at home, and if the electricity fluctuation happened, it used to damage that particular part. Now, why was this voltage stabilizer required? It came as a SME industry and really did well, because otherwise the TVs used to go for or the ACs used to go bad, because the voltage, the supply of voltage was not great, because it was inconsistent. Over a period of time, our towns and cities have clean electricity, and suddenly the voltage stabilizer has sort of died its death. Maybe it's still available in some of the smaller towns and cities. Therefore, for any technology, right, it takes time to learn, it takes time to be perfect, and this is no different. As far as the MeitY Act is concerned, I think it's quite early, sir, at this point in time. It's just been released, I think, about 3 days back, and 3 or 4 days back, at March 1st, I think. All the organizations which have been provided that from the MeitY side, the advisory, are going through it and are working with the government to ensure that there is respect for the laws of the land. At the same time, what it entails and what it does not entail, because it's still quite broad in its overall example. What it also means is that as we approach the election time, there are filters available, and when you have filters available for data sets which are there, if you do not apply those filters, you might get a different answer. If you apply the filters, you will get an answer which says that we will not be able to answer this particular thing, and that's exactly what we are currently putting into place.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Viren, I'll come to you next. You're taking Viren, taking a lead from what Mr. Bala has said, the recent government advisory in the wake of this Google Gemini controversy gave rise to a storm of protests and apprehensions that government regulations will throttle innovation. Thereafter, the Minister of State, that's Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, he has clarified that the advisory applies to Gen AI and LLM and will not apply to startups. Now, as a legislator, what do you envision as a kind of regulatory framework that would be necessary to provide a guardrail, but also ensure that innovation is not stifled?
Well, firstly, let me begin by thanking the Harish family, the Jagtiani family, for inviting me here for the 25th DM Harish Memorial Lecture. It's always a pleasure to attend these panel discussions and to participate on very, very pertinent topics. And thank you, Harish Uncle, for inviting me and as a panelist and for moderating the session. My personal view on AI, and obviously not as a technologist and someone who understands it at a deep level, but is perhaps a user and, like you said, a legislator who's trying to figure out what's happening. I think at some level, yes, there are certain concerns with artificial intelligence as a technology. The concerns, as Bala pointed out, can be very pertinent to my profession, where you have the issue of deep fakes. You can be ultra paranoid and think of a doomsday scenario where you have a Terminator movie type of scenario in 100 years from now, or Arthur C. Clarke in 2001 Space Odyssey. But every technology and every innovation throughout mankind and throughout history has seen some degree of fear-mongering, some degree of people who understand it and don't understand it but are yet using it. When electricity came into our homes, the industry which felt most threatened was the candle industry. When the telephone, when Alexander Graham Bell, there were many inventors, but he was one of the pioneers at Bell Labs, invented the telephone. The postal industry, which preceded that, felt extremely threatened. And every technology, the internet, when the internet came out, I remember when I was a student in the US, 95, Shom and I, my generation, there was the early days of email and the internet. Again, the postal industry felt threatened. What happens to the old idea of sending messages via mail, going to the post office, putting a stamp? So I think AI is no different. We're already living with AI in our lives. When you watch YouTube, for example, and suddenly, or you're on Instagram, or you're on Facebook, and you suddenly find you just went there for 5 minutes to check on your friend's status, and you find you've been scrolling on Facebook for 1 hour, watching these reels. Those reels are being thrown to you by the artificial intelligence algorithm. When you're on Netflix watching a show, and Netflix recommends a show to you, that's based on artificial intelligence. If you're someone like me or you who love music, and when I'm listening to music on Apple Music, and I start listening to one song, and I say, create a playlist, that playlist is created using artificial intelligence algorithms. So artificial intelligence is already part of our lives, and I don't think there's anything to worry about. In fact, I think that A large part of artificial intelligence, though there are concerns, yes, we have to figure out how to regulate certain aspects of it. But at many levels, the hype around artificial intelligence, in my opinion, might be overhyped. A year or 2 years ago, there was this huge hype in India and around the world relating to cryptos and blockchains. Although the price of bitcoins has skyrocketed, that hype has sort of settled down. So I don't think there's anything to fear about artificial intelligence. You and I, the users, don't need to worry about it. The engineers, some of whom are on this panel, will figure it out, will understand how to code and how to fix the algorithms. When it comes to regulation and when it comes to legislators, there are basically 2 or 3 parts, and Bala, you can correct me. But the raw material for artificial intelligence is the generation of data. And a country like India, where there's humongous internet usage, where we all have 4G, 5G phones, a country like China, for example, we're generating huge amounts of that raw material. The other critical aspect is computing capabilities, and that's why you have companies like NVIDIA, which makes the graphic processors and the chips which power artificial intelligence networks. You see these companies becoming some of the world's most valuable companies. And then, like you correctly mentioned, there's a deep learning element where you're not just giving commands to the machine, but you're allowing the machine to think for itself. Now, how do you regulate different parts of that is obviously very, very difficult. When you think of how do you regulate the computing part, for instance, every government around the world, the Indian government, the American government, are trying to bring semiconductor fabrication manufacturing to India. How do you regulate data, for instance? And for that you need what's called a data protection law, a privacy law. India has one right now. But of course, if you go to Europe and you study GDPR, it's the most stringent. It's the one which finds companies like Google and big tech companies and really ensures that the average citizen has what they call the right to be forgotten. If tomorrow there's a politician, someone in public life in Europe, and suddenly they say, I'm packing up and going to live in a village somewhere in Europe, they have the right to write to the regulator, to the internet company, and the right to be forgotten. And then when it comes to the deep learning networks, so much of that has become democratized. So there are so many today generative AI companies. ChatGPT is the most famous one, funded by Elon Musk and Microsoft and Bill Gates. But there are so many small ones. You can download these apps every now and then where you can generate images, you can generate videos. So unfortunately, and I say this as someone who's been in the Ministry of Information Technology as a minister, very few, I would say no governments in the world, I think, can be ahead of innovation in this space. That's the reality of the situation. Governments will have to figure out a way to allow this sector to flourish because it is strategic. There is essentially globally a war going on between America and China to be the most powerful AI superpowers. India has a lot of catching up to do. And in that sense, I would say I support the government's efforts to say, let this sector flourish, let this sector innovate, let young people, let young entrepreneurs innovate in this sector. How will they, for example, how will governments regulate, let's say, copyright issues? It's a famous case between New York Times and others. It's challenging. Maybe they'll succeed. But then again, companies like Indian Express and publishers will also have to, like they did from print to the internet, will have to start looking at their business models. Some models will get disrupted. In some cases, they may succeed in winning and having regulation. How will in politics, for example, deep fakes be regulated? It's very tough. It's very tough if you, with the power to create these deep fakes on people's fingertips. You ban a few apps, someone downloads a VPN and they get access to more apps. I don't think you can regulate content creation. I think to some extent, we can regulate data through privacy laws that we have. And to some extent, politicians and regulators can regulate the distribution of that content. So for instance, if there is a deep fake about a politician, let's say, that they made a speech, like Trump recently in the news that there was a video of him with black supporters and saying that, and this was a deep fake. Someone can write to platforms like Facebook, like Instagram, like Twitter and say, pull this down. But then we all know with mediums like WhatsApp, once someone has shared that, it's already on somebody's phone. How do you withdraw that message? How do you withdraw that video? So there are some areas where we can regulate. There are some areas where where regulation can precede innovation. But in many cases, unfortunately, we as a society, and as a society I mean technology companies, entrepreneurs, politicians, and ultimately the user, will have to go with the flow. And we'll have to see things as and when they evolve. But I think the net of net, I would say, I'm very optimistic about artificial intelligence. I think that it's a good thing for our country that we should promote the development of this space. And ultimately, I do believe, despite a lot of the negatives associated with it, like there are negatives with the internet, like there are negatives with a telephone perhaps, like there are negatives with social media. I think net of net, it brings more benefits and joy to society than it does disadvantage.
That's certainly not to be doubted at all. But the issue is one of regulation and where you draw the line. And you mentioned Indian Express, so my next question would be directed to Anand. You know, your newspaper was once gagged during 75 and 77, 97. That's during Mrs. Gandhi's emergency. Now, question to you is that with the advent of artificial intelligence and dissemination of false news, how do you think that freedom of speech will be impacted with the government's proposal to delete or modify Section 79 of the IT Act, which takes away the doctrine of safe harbor? So therefore, if that is taken away, the safe harbor clause, then what are your views on that?
You know, specifically safe harbor laws, the way that it's being used is actually to some degree benefiting big tech today more than it benefits publishers. And so I think, you know, this is the problem of this entire AI, the problem of all of these things. You know, every time there's this new technology, sort of a big tech shift like AI is bringing, it's always a double-edged sword, as Milind rightly said. Just that every time there's this big tech shift, the edges get sharper. You know, the pros and the cons both get more and more sort of extreme. You know, if government's going to come and solve the problem, you will eventually have somebody complaining about government solving it too strongly. I mean, we get so nervous when the moment government steps in to say you can say this or you can't say that. History has shown that that's just not a great way of doing things, right? I mean, you know, Trump would have convinced most people that fake news comes from the news industry, but you know, we keep reminding people that actually fake news comes from governments, not from news industry. The biggest fake news of the century was when Colin Powell stood up in the UN and said weapons of mass destruction were found in Iraq. That came from government, it didn't come from news. So I think, so we get very frightened when government starts fiddling with, you know, with whether it's safe harbor or whether it's anything to do with just free speech, anything that just content. You know, you want government to stay out of it. But it's tricky, if not government, then who? So when you think about AI, you know, whether we like it or whether we should be scared, how afraid should we be, how excited should we be? I think if we just go back and say when internet came in, I mean, do we think that overall it's helped society or it's been a problem to society? And can I get a show of hands? How many people overall think internet has helped society? It's binary, yes, no. And how many think it's actually caused damage to society? Like more damage than good. Okay, so I'm just like 4 or 5 hands. Okay. You know, I think if you look at if you ask me, I think the biggest problem of our times is polarization. I mean, some people feel passionate about climate change, some people passionate about, you know, gender issues, some people passionate about mental health, whatever. I think polarization is our biggest problem in the world today. And just any conversation, not only political conversation, any conversation today is so angry. There is no meeting of minds. And I think that leads to a stagnation for everything that happens. For all your common life, sort of, whether it's we want a coastal road, don't want a coastal road, lots of, every small issue, there's polarization stuff to kind of build consensus, stuff to kind of move forward. I think a big problem of polarization has come from big tech. I think the internet has created a lot of polarization. And if you look overall the last, since the advent of the internet, America has gotten tech right with innovation. Europe has gotten tech right with regulation. China has gotten tech right with imitation. Right? But if you think of America, they have got regulation and imitation completely wrong. If you think of Europe, they've gotten innovation and imitation completely wrong. You think of China, they've got an innovation regulation completely wrong. So how do we kind of get all these three things to work together in India? And I don't know the answer. I'm actually very nervous. Because I think, and this is, again, my view, and obviously as a publisher, it's my perspective, I think as time kind of progresses, we keep putting the user experience in the center of everything, and we say the user experience is getting better and better, and it's true, it is getting better. But the fact is, it's becoming more and more difficult to incentivize an original content creator. Whether it's a publisher, a news publisher like us, or whether it's a brilliant musician, or whether it is, a movie, whatever medium it is, unless you just hit it out of the park and you're like the best film director there is, or the best musician of the time, that entire 99% of the people in the industry, they're all struggling as original content creators. And the struggle is getting worse and worse and worse with every new tech innovation. I think, we've figured out user experience so well, but so I'll go back to one of the complaints that as publishers we have with Google, you won't mind. Google got search, is such a brilliant search algorithm, right? The whole world uses Google. Now, how did its search get so well? I mean, how is the search engine performing so well? The search engine performs very well because it learned from all the content that sort of the content creators allowed the Google algorithm to crawl, and then was able to kind of deliver good, authentic search results to the consumer. That was kind of the deal that we had with Google. We said, look, you will actually be a funnel for audiences to our platform. And for that, we'll allow you to crawl and we'll kind of have a good, we'll have a good relationship. Today, what's happened is that more than 60% of the search results on Google end up inside of Google. They don't go outside of Google. So whether you want your cricket scorecard, you want election results, you want a restaurant review, you want a movie review, you want movie show timing, you want flight timings, all of this stuff is all first step inside Google. Now, how does that incentivize anybody to do sort of the original work that actually led that search engine to become so efficient? I think it doesn't. It makes it much harder. So I think I hope all of you would probably, the one story I can expect most people in the room to know that we broke was the Panama Papers and all the offshore accounts. Now, if I don't get audiences for doing that story, which is a very tough story, it took a year, it took 5 of our senior most reporters, we spent a lot of time, money, effort to create that kind of journalism. If that kind of journalism doesn't bring an audience, I'm going to be less incentivized to invest in that kind of stuff. That Panama Papers has given the government of India 20,000 crore rupees. Government of India has earned 20,000 crore rupees just by reading Panama Papers, sending notices to all the people whose name we published. It was definitely we did service to society. I can name 10 other stories like that, but I'm giving an example.
No, we lawyers are also grateful for you.
By the way, anyway, I come to it. So, now if I'm getting disincentivized from doing Panama Papers or from doing my next investigative piece, somewhere society is losing, So I think with artificial intelligence, the user experience is definitely better. Obviously, as a user, there's lots of things we can get out now. It's much faster to get solutions to what you want to know about. But if we're not thinking about incentivizing and rewarding the guy who's investing in creating something original, whether it's a painting, whether it's music, whether it's a news item, I think somewhere society is hurting.
I think that's an excellent perspective. Let's just turn to the academia now for a change. Mr. Karande, there was news. There was a news item which was headlined as Dr. Karande brings AI to the forefront of Mumbai University. Now you have sought to revolutionize education by incorporation of AI in your curriculum. Could you expound on this?
Thank you, sir. In fact, AI, as we are discussing, is really very good, and we are teaching, as far as academic part is concerned, we are teaching AI since last 1 decade. If you see the history of AI, it starts somewhere back in 1950s, where we started with machine learning, and now we are talking about deep learning. Applications society has seen recently, like when social media and when the media is talking about AI and applications of AI. The question is, if today we are discussing what are benefits and risks of AI, I think the world has gone beyond that, and there is no go back. There is no option. Now AI has entered in everybody's life. Unless and until we don't know risks of AI, it will be very difficult to comment on the future of AI. So when Anant asks audience that how many of them prefer AI, obviously I think there are list authored about the risks of AI, which are really very hazardous if it is not controlled. Any technology, when launched, always we talk about benefits and risks. Obviously, there are so many advantages which society is enjoying today. The risks are also multifold. Better the benefits of the technology, in same proportion there are risks of AI. Earlier also some technologies were invented and launched into the society, like computers. That time also it was discussed whether it is beneficial or harmful. But the risks of computers were not so much as compared to AI. AI can help to increase the business efficiencies, your turnovers, your work easiness, but at the same time, now as we were talking about deepfakes, it can also lead towards the wrong decisions, and it can destroy anything. As far as our academic part is concerned, we are teaching these subjects now since long. Since last 10 years now it is being taught in academics. Now, since last 3 years, Mumbai University has launched programs in AI and machine learning. So these are specific programs which contains all the subjects which starts with machine learning, then deep learning, artificial intelligence, all branches now we cover. Then NLL, MLL, all courses now we teach. As far as applications of AI into academics and especially Mumbai University examination systems are concerned, as you know, Mumbai University is always in news for so many things. It's huge university, 850 colleges, we conduct 450 exams. It is a continuous, and after this pandemic, now every day we are conducting exams. So we have about 9 lakh students. So conducting exams of 9 lakh students, there are multiple factors now which affect, and when society looks towards the outcomes of university, it is looked in the form of results and declaration of results. So whatever problems are in the system since inception of courses, designing of courses, running of the institutes, the regular faculties, the ways by which institutes or colleges run the programs, it all reflects now when results are declared. So when I joined Mumbai University, there were a lot of problems, and so I thought human beings, government institutes, so you know what are the problems of government institutes. And so the only solution we found that it can be solved or it can be reduced by replacing most of the things by artificial intelligence. So initially we started with admission processes. The admission processes needs huge data. So we started with checking all the documents with using artificial intelligence. We started finalizing the admissions, then declaring the dates of that, then allocation of centers. We use more than 800 centers for conducting these exams. Our 3 lakh students, as I already said. Then there were many mismatches now while allocating these resources. So we use AI for allocation of resources, all problems resolved. We conducted exams. Assessment is a big problem, and mostly this is a problem with law colleges. So majority of the law colleges don't help us to assess the papers in time, and most of the time law results are delayed. So this is a fact. And so we are using AI now to analyze the data. Now, who are the institutes? Now, how many faculties are there who are assessing papers, who are not assessing papers, and it helps us to give the analysis which is used for taking the actions, and based on that, now we are in a position to declare our results in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Jagdish, turning to AI and its use in industries, my question to you is, why is AI regarded as being revolutionary, and how is it different from the computing software that is being used currently? And add to that, I'd like you to also tell us that how do you perceive the role of AI in shaping the future of various industries, especially the software programming, tech companies, and back office technology centers which you have founded? Way ahead of anyone's time.
Yeah, thank you. I think AI is absolutely revolutionary when it comes to the field of software development. And I think that is a tremendous opportunity, and in many ways it is also something that we as a nation just need to be acutely aware about. In fact, just today I read an interview by Mr. Vineet Nair, who was the Chief Executive Officer of Tech Mahindra, and his perspective is that 70% of all engineering roles in India, by engineering I refer to software engineering roles, will be redundant because of the advent and the developments of AI. So as a country, we hire between 5 million and 6 million people who work in the tech services space. These 5 to 6 million jobs help us probably bring in maybe $200 billion of export revenues. The export of IT services is really India's oil. You can imagine where we would have been as a country if this industry had not developed, the way it has developed. And therefore, the impact of artificial intelligence and generative technologies on software development in some ways is going to have a profound national impact on us as a country. If you look at the state of the industry today, then if today there are hypothetically 10 people working in a team to develop some form of computer software, then my guess is that as on date, 2 to 3 of those jobs have already become redundant. As the technology evolves, whether that number will stay at 3, I think it's unlikely. Most likely it will keep climbing. What I think this technology does, just to make it real for the audience, right? Imagine I have a computer program which is written in a language called Java, which is a very popular computer programming language. And now I need to translate that computer program into a language called Perl, which is another programming language. Most likely the translation will be reversed, because Perl is a kind of older and more legacy language as compared to Java. So in the good old days, there would be a colleague of mine who would know Perl, and I would be the programmer who knows Java, and then Milind here would be our domain expert, and the 3 of us would be studying that Perl programming code, and we would have somebody who's kind of understanding that code, analyzing that code, a domain expert trying to figure out exactly what that code is doing to fill in gaps which the programmer can't identify, and me as a Java programmer would then be creating the Java code. Today, you take that entire Perl code and you feed it into a generative AI, into a large language model, you feed it into software which exists, and the software will automatically translate large chunks of that code into Java for you. And then as a Java programmer, you essentially need to look at what has been done, test it for its accuracy, and something which may have taken months of work would probably be done in a matter of weeks. So that's the kind of opportunity that is created. And these languages are just starting, these models and technologies are just starting to get better. One of the most popular ways of programming is paired programming, where I will essentially have a colleague and I are working on the same code base. I will be writing computer software, and I will have a peer or a colleague who is reviewing the code which I write, giving me feedback, giving me suggestions. Now I essentially have the computer, which is my peer. So I'm with paired programming with that generative AI algorithm. And if you see the sophistication of tools which Amazon, I will not take the technical names because they are not relevant here, but if you look at tools which are developed by Amazon, you look at tools which are developed by Microsoft, you look at tools which are developed by ChatGPT, probably Google may also have tools, or if not, they will have them very soon. These tools are just increasing in sophistication with every passing day because of the massive investment capabilities that these tech giants actually possess. So what I think it really does is that if you are a really smart computer programmer, it will kind of improve your productivity tremendously. If you are a programmer who is kind of average, to use a term, I don't intend to use it pejoratively, but just in every field you will have people who are average and you will have people who are kind of really good. Then in some ways your job really gets threatened. What that will do in terms of jobs, in terms of output. So you might have companies or enterprises which have budgets, and they will preserve their budgets. So they will just get a greater bang for the buck because of the greater productivity of the teams which are working to develop software. Or you might have enterprises which will start to cut down budgets, and then that will kind of reduce the demand for labor. So plainly, the number of jobs that will get created, if today you have the ability, you can have a group of 100 people who can build robots, then my guess is the robots that they build will end up taking away more jobs than the jobs which have got created. The jobs which are created are much higher end jobs. So I think AI is going to create lots of opportunity, it's going to create a lot of jobs. It's going to be really exciting to see how it plays out. But in many ways, as compared to conventional software development, it is indeed nothing short of revolutionary. So
Thanks. Yes.
Just one quick point on the point of jobs, the fear about jobs. I mean, so China now, for instance, is moving up the value chain. Now China has, I think in 2019, 2020, for 2 years in a row, they attracted almost 50% of global capital, venture capital that chases AI companies. And as their per capita income rises, they no longer want to manufacture socks and shoes. There are countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, and many others who are far more efficient and do it at a far more affordable level than China can do it. So they are upskilling their manpower, and their people are now becoming labelers, for instance. In fact, Tim Cook once said that the holy grail, the mother of all artificial intelligence, is the self-driving car. And what they call VTX, the vehicle to everything, the technology where a car and it's self-driven, but like an airplane has radars and a transponder to know exactly what's in its vicinity. That's the future of how cars will also drive. And China is also trying to play a lead in that. So I think even the job point, because there is fear in society that will jobs go away with AI. But China is an interesting example where someone whose grandfather was a farmer and whose father was a factory worker, that young boy or girl, they're now upskilling and now becoming labelers and moving into the AI economy. So I think that the issue of jobs, not that you've touched upon it or we've gone into detail, but I think I don't believe that the job threat is a serious threat. I think all these technologies over time have demonstrated that human beings, societies ultimately adapt, they upskill. Yes, there are certain industries where people do go out of the workforce, but the next generations, they always learn to upskill, acquire those skill sets to be ready for that industry and that innovation.
Well, thank you very much for that perspective.
I'll just add one quick comment. In fact, just yesterday, I was in conversation with somebody who was an executive with a company based out of India, which derives $50 million of revenue just doing data labeling for a whole lot of US companies, because that data in some ways becomes the fodder for all of the algorithms, to kind of get trained. So yeah, so it will be really interesting to see how the whole landscape evolves in terms of, what jobs become redundant, what are the new jobs which get created, what skills become less relevant, and which are the new skills which kind of, come into play. So, thank you.
So that was what I was going to add, that the amount of data which is there with us and all of that which needs to be gleaned, that's going to create an immense amount of jobs. And that's where that upskilling which Milind spoke about is going to be very important, because eventually if AI has to be true to society, what it throws out also has to be true. And that's what the data is going to actually provide us.
Thanks. Keshu, I'm turning to you now. That's to complement what Professor Karande has told us. One, of course, probably the most loved professor government law college has seen 30 years over here. They threw me out after 5 years. Anyway, now coming to and academics. Bill Gates in his recent visit to India has reiterated that AI is the most transformative technology, and students would do well to delve into the mysteries of AI. Now, as a professor of law, how would you encourage your students to acquire AI skills for research, for presentations? And add to that also, I'd like you to address the other question. Am I audible? Yeah. Am I audible now? I think yes. And I'd like to ask you another question, which complements. Do you believe that AI apps and robotics can be used in the near future for analyzing legal arguments and deciding cases and delivering judgments, as there is a huge backlog of cases? If you can combine these two and unravel the mysteries of AI.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, apologies to Mr. Karande. As Law College, we'll try and get you your papers on time corrected. So I hope you're not referring to GLC exclusively, right? This is Law College.
But there is a lot of improvement now.
No, but not
So
GLC
we are declaring results in time.
Okay.
Thanks.
But I just had to do this. I had to defend my college here. Okay, so let me take that second question first. And the answer is, why not? You have a 138 application. It's a check that has been dishonored. The two parties could file their proceedings. The process is fairly simple. You don't need a judge to really go through the process if all the check boxes are done properly. You could file it online. You could get a decision online. I do not see any reason why, for simple matters, the judiciary could not be freed to do complex matters and leave the simple matters to AI. That's one. Following up, in the legal profession, we already have AI being applied in drafting contracts. Bloody dangerous. Now just think about it. In law school, you learn, then you apply your mind to make content. Here, you're applying content without learning the law. So who is going to vet those particular contracts? So to my mind, there's a big danger if you're going to take this beyond a certain level. We first need to learn and apply rather than apply without learning. Now, I've been hearing a lot of conversation here on AI, and I'm just wondering, why are we even talking about AI as some living, breathing creature who is there and the technology is coming and we got to deal with it? Before coming here, I was talking to my dad, and I asked him, when did you get your first calculator? He said 1968. He said it was magic. There are 9 digits and a 0 and some algorithms. You do 2 plus 2 and the thing flashed 4. Magic. This was 1968. We are facing something similar now. The fundamental difference is technology is just moving on. What were simple tasks being performed then, which today do not really affect us, but because AI is doing cognitive human skills, we are now looking at it differently. So if I look at AI and what I've been hearing, it is not a software revolution. It is a data revolution. companies have been collecting data for years, and now it's time with high computing power to use that data effectively. But mind you, that data comes from human resources. So artificial intelligence can only be as good as human stupidity. If the human data out there has got a bias, artificial intelligence will have a bias, because it is sourcing itself from data created by human beings. And while, take for ChatGPT for example, it's got newspapers, books, articles, it's vetted, it's got a lot of sophisticated data, but it's also drawing data from blog spots, from content written on websites. So obviously there is going to be some element of bias coming in, and I don't think that should worry us. In fact, that is natural. There will be, in fact, and sir, with respect to you, I think Gemini tried to remove the bias, right? Gemini tried to remove the bias, and we got some odd results. We got a female pope, So I don't think this is an easy task for us to come to easy solutions and say, look, let's remove the bias. Trust me, AI is going to generate based on the algorithm that the CEO of a company will be a male and a nurse will be a female, because that's the data it is drawing from generations of human writing and so on and so forth. So my first contention is we should not worry about the bias. As human beings are biased, AI will be biased, and let the law deal with it as it comes. To answer your first question on how students would deal with this, sir, with due respect to everybody here, students are rascals. They will find any way to beat the system, and they know how to beat the system. And I just want to tell all the students listening here, there are approximately 25 Facebook pages on ChatGPT for teachers. Yeah, so they tell the teachers how to know whether the students have used ChatGPT. Yeah, okay. Now, one thing about AI in the student world is there's going to be democratization of knowledge. Every student in the country will have access to the best knowledge available. It's no longer going to be the prima facie exclusivity of leading colleges. Every student will have that information. The second thing, we could tweak the syllabus. We could tweak the syllabus depending on where the program is being taught, urban areas, rural areas. We could tweak the teaching methodology depending on the nature of the student. Some students understand better in images, some understand better with diagrams, some understand better with writing. So the program could be tweaked. So AI can cause a huge revolution in how the teaching engagement between a teacher and a student works. And that's going to be phenomenal, because a teacher gets tired, whereas AI is available to you 24/7. So you see, from a student's perspective, AI can dramatically change the way he's learning. We can also identify certain challenges that students face in their early learning years, and I'm not talking at the graduate or undergraduate level, I'm talking at the school level. We could find certain students have special needs, and AI could cater to those special needs. Now, there's also a downside, sir. The downside would be, number one, as Anand said, we would get students without any skills. You're aware that using certain platforms, I can put in a few words of mine, a theme, and select a general music, and Professor Kishu Daswani will be Michael Jackson. So I could create a song, I could create videos, I could create images. My students, before I really got in touch with AI, were using Canva to give me certain phenomenal presentations, and I was dumbstruck. I said, wow. It took me a little time to figure out that there are programs that do these PPTs, and there's nothing to be impressed about. So we're going to have students who are not entirely skilled, but are able to present themselves as very well skilled. Writing statement of purpose is going to be a thing of the past. If any of you are worried about it, there are going to be programs that are going to write your statement of purpose for admission to universities. You could also one more thing of AI is virtual reality. A large number of teachers globally are using virtual reality to explain to their students things. So if I was to be doing dissection of a flower, in the old school, you would be in a biology lab, you would cut the flower, you would open it, you would feel the little fluid coming out of the flower, and you would see the calyx, the corolla in different parts. Today you just put on a video and there'll be something taking you through the artificialness of the flower. You lost the feel and the touch. You're not going to go to a garden or to a laboratory to see that. So I think that is one of the downsides. Virtual reality, while it's wonderful and it gives access to people who do not have laboratories, I think there would be a downside on the field touch. Skill-less, experience-less, emotion-less students. And those who come from the COVID generation of students know exactly how distant virtual learning can be. You don't really meet, feel, see a person. You do not read the body language. Your teacher is not able to feel you. So I think while AI is great, it has to be used very, very carefully so that we do not lose our traditional teaching methodologies. And the last thing, of course, is prompt generation. Apparently, prompt generation is $1 million industry in the United States. To ask the right question. So if you want to use AI effectively, and there are going to be gods, but just think about it. I ask a question to the Pope. Can I smoke when I'm praying? And he'll say, no, son, you cannot smoke when you're praying. But if I ask him, can I pray when I'm smoking? He'll say, yes, son, you should pray when you're smoking. Smoking is very dangerous. So while the fact is, when you're using AI, to my mind, as a teacher, the first thing I need to teach my students is how to ask the right questions on ChatGPT so that they get the maximum benefit. I think that's what teachers need to do to optimize the use of current technology and let it run parallel with traditional education rather than replace traditional education. Thanks.
First part, he sort of seems to accept the inevitability of bias and prejudices creeping into it because they are very much a part of human nature. I want to understand from you, what is the dark side of AI and how does one eliminate prejudices? Because once AI reflects those prejudices and the influence that it has on mankind, especially the people who are so addicted to it, how do you avoid that? How do you take this dark side away? Do you have any means by which you can avoid these biases from getting amplified?
Okay, so I can answer the second part first. That's easy because I think all of us have sort of alluded to it. I think removing prejudices is as good as getting the data clean. So if there is an inordinate effort to get the data clean, which is before the actual process, right, itself, then you control the input, shape the behavior, and then you get the desired output. So it's all about controlling the input, which means that as long as you're able to provide and point it to the right sources of data or clean the data, because a lot of data, again, as Milind also alluded to, right, the amount of data we all generate is humongous. And therefore, to get all of that together in one place and to ensure that something as innocuous as will it rain today, and to answer that, would need it to go back and run through millions of CPUs and codes, which needs to be waterproof. And therein that just four-word question has brought us to one dark side of AI, which is the amount of electricity, power, cooling which is required probably can take you to the moon. Just a question, right? But it also means that are we stopping at accepting it? No. So, for example, Google has data centers beneath the sea in Finland, just to ensure that you really don't end up burning the resources which are available from a fossil fuel perspective. So that's just one part of it. The other part of it is how do we avoid anything related to, say, a physical harm, right? So, example, if there is medical misdiagnosis which happens, something which is not supposed to be actually diagnosed for the patient, and you end up and people these days seem to consult the mobile more than the doctor. So how do we avoid a misdiagnosis, right? How do we avoid a misfiring of a particular component in a factory? If something goes wrong there and because of AI, it gets pointed to something else and then something goes down. So I think wrong attribution. Suppose you're part of tagging of certain health benefits, and for some reason, the data does not help you reach there, point to the right tagging, you might end up losing certain benefits. Something as simple as jobs. I think somebody spoke about jobs, right? These days, I do understand that a lot of organizations also automate job responsibilities to generative AI. And when you automate job responsibility to generative AI, the job description is written by the computer. And the diagnosis or the processing or parsing of the CVs is also done by that. And when that app does that, there is quite a possibility that you might miss out on the exceptional capabilities of an individual simply because they did not include that keyword in their job search. So these are some of the real impacts. Of course, then there is misinformation and the disinformation, which are all part of the dark side. I'll give you another example, right, which is diagonally opposite to this. We recently had an attack which hit our network, 398 million requests per second. Obviously, across multi-nations, the Google network had a hit. Now, if you don't have AI, you will never be able to even thwart it, let alone recover from it. If you had put an army of people, you would have probably needed many countries to just keep people there just to stop it. But that's the other side of it, and that's the power of it. So as long as we are not violating the privacy of people, we are not helping them with the loss of due process as what is due to society, I think those are some of the things which we need to take care of as far as protecting the dark side is concerned.
Thank you. I have one last question for the panelists, for one of the panelists, before I then spend the next 10 minutes on an interactive session amongst the panelists. And then, of course, we'll throw it open to the floor. And this, of course, would be relevant in the context of the elections that is just around the corner. So, Milind, this question has to come to you. And the question is that how do you see the role of AI on election campaigns with the circulation of deepfakes and misinformation? And what are the government programs on the anvil to encourage, I'll just confine myself to this question. And let your imagination run now.
Generative AI.
Yeah.
How do I see what is the impact of generative AI and AI on elections? Massive. So everything from targeted algorithms on platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, targeting voters, core constituencies, trying to bring the vote out. That's what parties will do, that's what agencies in the middle will do. Deepfakes exist in India. It's a relatively new phenomena. They do exist in many parts of the world, in the Western world. It's a serious issue. But is it something that we could expect in a country where over 600 million people will go out to cast their vote? 100%. How will governments, how will the Election Commission regulate that? Honestly, it remains to be seen. I think what could happen, a potential scenario could be that if there's a deep fake about a particular politician, basically there's a video of a politician making a statement that they didn't actually make and it looks so real and convincing. That politician, that political party would typically complain to the regulator, who in the case of an election would be the Election Commission of India. And they would write to that platform to take it down. So let's say there's that video which is circulating on a meta network like Facebook or Instagram. They would write to them to take it down. As I mentioned earlier, what would you do if that video has already gone viral on WhatsApp? It's already on people's phones. It's already stored on their hard disk. There's very little you can do. So these things are concerns, Harish, in the sense that deep fakes in elections, misinformation, disinformation is a serious issue. But I come back to my earlier point, when you talk of regulation, when you talk of whether it's Election Commission during an election, whether it's other agencies, governments at best can regulate data and ensure privacy. Governments at best can put pressure on platforms to pull down certain things. Governments, as Professor Daswani pointed out, to some extent you can regulate syllabus. and say how do schools and colleges use generative AI, but yet also allow teachers to make sure that the student is learning something if they're preparing an essay. But what the government in any part of the world cannot do is regulate the tech innovation aspect. That is something which is getting more and more democratized. That is something where people will be able to generate content at the very basic level, an essay, but at a more evolved level, deep fake videos in the months and years to come on their phone with an app. So the government will not be able to regulate that, no matter what any government will say. The government can potentially regulate the distribution of that. Even that is very, very difficult. So these are things we have to live with. These are things which Election Commission, the Election Commission of India, Election Commission equivalents around the world will have to upgrade their own capacity to be, if not ahead of innovation, to at least be able to respond to it as quickly as possible.
Harish, I think it is equally possible on a lighter note. I think it's equally possible on a lighter note. Yes. Yeah. I think that we might have candidates who will make inappropriate statements, and when they are highlighted, then they will say that, hey, that was a deep fake. I say that on a lighter note, and I'm certainly not talking about.
Great idea. But there are ways to determine what is a deep fake. So that's not really a concern, that a politician can say that was a deep fake, it wasn't me making that statement. But the distribution, the dissemination of that deep fake, by the time you stop it, it's already gone to be there. So.
So, one question, sir, Mr. Bala, for you, is, there's a book by Cathy O'Neill, Weapons of Math's Destruction, on inequalities and undemocratization. Nothing personal here, but I'm probably voicing a concern from a liberal perspective. Why do I trust you? Because ultimately, the AI is a part of my life, I have to use it, and data lies with the big companies or the government. Now, while you may not have you may take care of the unconscious bias, but what about creating a conscious bias, wherein you may actually withhold certain data points, enhance certain data points, and make my algorithm or the search engine such that makes me want to go to a particular restaurant or a particular university or do a particular something. How do I, or who do I trust? So would there be any regulation for that, or should there be?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I can't answer if regulation is there, because that probably I'll leave it to the legal and lawmakers of the land. But I think every generative, or rather every AI company, or for that matter any big tech company, at least as far as Google is concerned, we have principles of AI embedded in each of our processes. And what those principles are, for example, is it beneficial for society, where the benefits outweigh the risks straight away, or the harm. The second piece is, how can we avoid unfair bias? Now, of course, there could always be odd cases which happen, but how could we avoid unfair bias? Or even, the change of bias with respect to data, right? I mean, if the data really changes a view in that sense. It also is with respect to security and trust. How do we really make it trustworthy and reliable? For example, the biggest difference between typical compute and AI is compute can be secure with all the security tools in place. AI, you have to build trustworthiness, right? That's a big point.
My question was more based on what happened recently. A question asked of the Indian Prime Minister elicited a different response from a question asked of the American President. So in this case, I mean, was it a case of unconscious bias, or was there a conscious bias? I'm pretty sorry, nothing personal, I'm just trying to...
No, absolutely. No, that's fine. To the best of my knowledge, and I'm answering this in my personal capacity to what I know, I believe in the US, the election dates and the election dates have been announced, and therefore the filters related to those personalities were in place. In India, the election list, if I remember, Milind, the election list got released probably a couple of days after this particular thing happened. So the filter was not in place. I think right now the filters are being put into place, obviously, with respect to, and therefore it would have taken care of it. Right? Because during this crucial period, we have to ensure that all the search results are displayed without bias.
Before I throw it open to the floor, yes, of course, go ahead.
So all this exciting talk of tech and regulation, I don't want to force news into it, but I can't resist. I'm just going to try a little bit. Whatever was just said, I think, this is why I'll just turn a little bit optimistic sort of opinion. I think this is why there is still a need for journalism. I'm not going to say media, I'm going to say journalism. Because, people need to know who and what they can trust for credible source of information. So, I mean, you'll be surprised, but I'm surprised that, the Indian Express today is selling more newspaper copies post-COVID than we sold pre-COVID. I'm very surprised by it.
I'm not.
I think there is, I think if we have faith and we hope for the best, if we have faith that people want something they can trust. And I think the fact is that technology has struggled to create, to give information in a consistently trustworthy fashion. I mean, I'll give you an example of Apple. It's one of the finest companies in the world, right? Apple News has started and failed 5 times already now. It's the 6th effort to finally getting some traction. So I think for technology to do tough, complicated things like news and journalism, it's hard. And for journalism to do complicated things like technology, it's hard. I think we have not yet found a place where both the content as from an information sort of perspective as journalism and tech together sort of doing this same platform, doing both together. That's not happened yet. I think whoever cracks that first, some say New York Times has cracked it, I will disagree. But I think when the person who cracks that combination, I think that is where you start seeing that this is actually adding value to society and not just causing stress.
Thanks. I think I'll now throw it open to the floor, because I can see there must be a lot of questions which will come to your mind after having heard these very, very illuminating views on the subject. So it's thrown open, and as I said, before you ask your question, please announce your name and say which year you are in, and direct it to a panelist.
Thank you. I'm audible?
Yes.
Yes. My name is Deven Sonar. I'm from 5-3 at GLC. My question to anyone from the panelists is, recently I heard about an AI which is yet to come in market. It is called Sora AI. And I heard that it creates videos in matter of seconds just on the basis of text input. So my question is how it is going to impact content creators, and the next question to anyone from the panelists is, how can we distinguish in AI generated content and the original content? As sir said, that it is difficult nowadays to find the original creator. So how is there a way out to distinguish between AI generated content and the original content, or can we make something? Thank you.
Mr. Bala, would you like to take that?
Yeah, so I think as every tech evolves, right, this is another evolution of generative AI technology, right? So it started with the text processing. So you asked a question and it gave you an answer. Now the capabilities of generative AI have just gone to the next level, and therefore what you're getting is now multimodal capabilities. So now what you called as Sora.ai, again, it's not from Google, but I'm sensing that it would have text and video as well. And I do not know whether it has audio, but we do have similar capabilities from Gemini, which make it powerful because it has text, audio and video all put in together. And so I think the question which you asked about how do you distinguish between AI content and genuine created content, I think it's a very thin line, right? Because it again gets into matters of, okay, is it already, are the design principles incorporating privacy, for example? Are the design principles incorporating consent, for example? If it is available out there in the internet, and if you can just take that picture and then put it in, everybody does it, right? A lot of students do that. But the question is that if it's a celebrity, and if it's a celebrity recognition API, for example, which has to be in place, then are we having the relevant consent and privacy in place? So it's a very thin line out there between what is available out there and what can be used. Of course, there will always be copyrights and other things as far as enterprises are concerned. But I would still believe that, and I put this example of human mind over AI. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie of the United Airways flight which landed in the middle of River Hudson. All the machine language, Scully, I think Captain Scully. All the machine language simulators pointed to the fact that there was a nearest airfield and the plane could actually land there. But his mind very clearly, told that it would not reach the nearest airfield. It would land in the middle of the river because that was the only way they could save the passengers of the plane. So that's why I say that the original design and the original content creation will always stand out as compared to what you maybe take from elsewhere. That's all I would say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Harish, and I'm not a student, so I want to say cheer him in. This is about Google, although I don't mean to be on this. This is about Google, but I don't mean to put Mr. Bala on the spot. Maybe Milind can answer this, or either one of you. But there was a case in America very recently that an employee of Chinese origin, I don't know if he's a Chinese citizen, was working for Google in the US and was being paid by Chinese companies to steal Google's AI code and different aspects of the technology and pass it on to companies in China. And this went on for about a year before it was discovered. And of course he's been now indicted and there's a trial and it'll go, I guess soon it'll be adjudicated soon. But the US government has actually called this a risk to national security. So when we talk about allowing AI to thrive because there are inherent human biases and ultimately better content will prevail, I don't know if it's as simple as that, because the fact is governments already recognize this as a national security risk. So in that sense, the question is twofold, that we can't say that regulation will have to find a way to catch up or will have to find a way to adapt. We will have to think about those implications now, because obviously it's already been perceived as a national security risk. So the question is, why is it a national security risk? And if it is, for whatever reason, then can we really say that, well, regulation will catch up when it does?
Which of the panelists are you directing this question to?
And it would appear, Mr. Bala, but I think Ms. Milind would perhaps be better placed to answer it, since it has a little bit more of government's role.
No, I think the question, Rishika, is not so much about AI, but it's more about national security and technology. So for instance, in the US with India, now there's a serious threat with regards to how China is stealing data. I mean, back in the day, China had what they call Confucius Institutes in universities, through which they had professors who were allegedly stealing data. Then they had people working in the private sector who were stealing data. But now, technology has evolved to such a level where China, or any country, any hacker for instance, any state-sponsored hacker from their own country can hack into government networks, into private networks and steal critical data. It's an interesting example because if you look at certain technologies, like you look at drones, you look at drones and robotics, you look at space, you look at AI. China has caught up very, very quickly in about 10 years. And there's many people who believe it's because of all these factors. Through Confucius Institutes, through people as plants in the private sector, through directly hacking. So I don't think that's an issue more of AI, but that's an issue of, that's a national security issue which calls for all kinds of regulation, which transcends even AI as one technology. So for instance, now, drones, you take drones. In most municipalities in the US, where they use drones for, the police use drones, the firefighters use drones. Now they've banned drones from China. And the biggest drone manufacturer in the world is a Chinese company called DJI. In fact, there's an Indian drone company called Idea Forge, which is a publicly listed company. It supplies to the Indian army. They now want to go to the US because they think that they can supply to the US, as American companies and American governments have lost faith. So there's a much larger security issue at play. That's more of stealing of data, hacking into sovereign networks. But AI is also a race. AI is also a race as to who has developed the best AI technologies. And there is a huge race between the US and China. And China in the last 10 years or so has, every expert says, I don't know what Bala's view and Google's view on that is, but every expert I've spoken to says China and the US are at par now. It's not that they're behind the US, they're literally at par. When you talk of space, everyone says China and the US are at par. America opened its space industry a little before China, but China also has many private sector players in space. In fact, now they've been moved out of the International Space Station. The new space station is being built by a private Chinese company. The new International Space Station is being built by a private American company called Axiom also. So there are these races going on. And I think that many parts of the world, including India and including the US, need to find ways also to partner together against common threats. AI is one area where we can do that. So as I mentioned in the early part of my speech, generating data, which is the raw material for AI, is one part. But creating a semiconductor base where countries like America, India, allies are not dependent only on Taiwan, which has a lion's share of manufacturing of semiconductors, which is a very critical ingredient for everything, but specifically for AI. That's also part of government policies now. America, for instance, is encouraging manufacturing of semiconductor chips, onshoring that. India is starting to do that through production-linked incentives to get companies to do that. So this is how I think policymakers have to look at this piece. You have to factor in the strategic aspects, you have to factor in what are societal impacts, and you have to look at the entire ecosystem. You can't just look at one aspect of AI. There's many, many aspects to it. I hope I answered that.
Yes, you did.
What steps should be taken
Take the mic,
for
please.
controlling social psychology?
Take the mic, please.
There is a danger.
Your name and
My
your...
name is S.R. Khanna. I am a chartered accountant, Navratna auditor and director of company. What remedies you propose to control mass psychology and social psychology through AI? The press can answer this question properly.
Who do you wish should answer this?
The press.
The press.
See, this is what I was saying. If people don't know, they come to the press. So that's. So you have to incentivize us to keep doing what we do. Sorry, I didn't understand the question, by the way. Sorry.
See, many.
So, I think it comes from, I think awareness is really the only answer. I was asking Professor earlier whether, he allows the students to use Wikipedia, when they write their papers. And clearly it's not allowed. So I think, if students are made aware, if we're all made aware about, what is, can be trusted sort of places for information, news, content, whatever, versus places which are kind of aiding you for quick information. I think that's really the starting point. Then you have to create that awareness of just not succumbing to the algorithm. I mean, the number of people, and we've all seen the movie Social Network, I hope we have also. The number of people who just get stuck on Instagram, just their thumbs are controlling their minds, then you suddenly discover you lost an hour of your day. Nandan Nilekani wrote a wonderful book about exactly this, and kind of how we can all kind of train our minds to kind of not fall victim to these powerful sort of tech algos. But really, it all comes from a certain self-awareness. It all comes from sort of spending a little bit of time going inwards without a phone in your hand. But that's kind of I'm going a little spiritual, but that's kind of my answer.
Yeah, I think I can add. Now people are talking about ethical AI, and whatever outcomes AI gives, who will take the responsibility? So these questions are in discussion. As far as AI's outcomes are concerned, the corporates, I think, will take care about ethicality of the AI, because that is requirement of corporates. It creates values, and that creates customer base, so that is the issue. But another issue is that I hope that governments also cannot avoid their responsibility to regulate the rules. This is really required, because as a common person who is really concerned about his personal data, this is today's need, and I hope governments will take this into account. Even Government of India 2018, they have regulations, and they are working on it. So.
I don't know why you feel confident that corporates will do the ethical thing, because I don't think so far that's happened. Right? Whether it's fast food. I mean, it's an irresponsible amount of salt or sugar that they put to keep you munching on. What have they done to control it themselves? You had to wait how many years for governments to come and say this is not all right. And there is, I remember when I was in college, United Airlines stock price tanked 50%. Why? Because Google's algorithm decided that the top news item was a 10-year-old news story about a United Airlines crash or some malfunction. I can't remember exactly what it was. United Airlines stock price crashed 50% because the first thing that showed up on Google when you search United Airlines was a 10-year-old story. If Indian Express had made this mistake, or the New York Times had made this mistake, we'd still be paying the penalty for it. So I don't see corporates really coming. So I'm just want to put that out there.
We have time for just 2 more questions.
And that's exactly the point I was making earlier. That why would I trust any corporate or any entity, because the corporate can tweak the data because they are responsible for gains to their shareholders, and that's exactly what they would do in the long run. In fact, look at the amount of data we've been giving companies every day. We are so happy to tell our life stories, what we like, dislike, names, detail on them. You think this data is actually necessary for the service they're giving us? No, this is the price we're paying for the service they're giving us. And this is a scheme of collecting data not only by corporates, but also by the government. So I think they are ultimately going to control the way we think. The question that you ask about psychology, the more we use AI, the more our minds will be thinking the way companies owning data want us to think. And that is the most dynamic change AI is going to have in the world today. It's going to change the way we think.
You have a question?
Probably add, right? See, if you're going to use AI for what you all legal minds do, right, which is, say, contract documentation, prediction, forecasting, summarization, discovery, classification of documents, all of that is perfect. All of that is perfect for generative AI. But I would believe that as human beings, let us not, again, using a word which you all use very frequently, right? Let us not use it for critical thinking yet. Let us not use it for, judgment. And let us not use it for empathy. Is this movie great? Is a judgment you're asking. And then it will go into reams and reams of data and then throw out something, right? Probably you're just trying to address your own bias about the movie. And then you're saying, is this movie good? So what I would say is that Sir, just to let you know, we are working on, say, Hindi, right? Spoken in, say, Bihar could be different from spoken in, say, Mumbai, or Marathi for that matter, in different parts of the state. We have initiatives like, multilingual representation of Indian languages, where we are working on almost 17 languages in the Google Assistant. And imagine your parents or your kids have to speak in the local lingo and then get it translated. And the possibilities that can have, right? Similarly, we are working on something called as Morni, which is working on 100 Indic languages to give that representation. And then 773 districts across India for many dialects which we are all having. Because dialects you can only recognize with face, you cannot recognize with the spoken word, right? You can only recognize it. So just to give you a sense, so there is a Center for Responsible AI at IIT Chennai, which we have partially funded.
Bala, my only request is whatever you do, don't make lawyers redundant.
I was just going to come to that, sir. I was just going to come to that, not to make you redundant, but probably to make you much more valuable to society. So, if all of you are on your phones, maybe you can just go and check out an organization called Contract Pod AI. What it does is, contract lifecycle management, it does contract redlining, it does legal intakes. Of course, it has a battery of lawyers in its own firm, but just giving you a point that it does exactly what I told you in the beginning, which is content discovery, summarization, and all of that, which will help you all to do much more value-added work than just doing redlining on the contracts.
You have a question?
Sir, I have a question. Sharan Jagtiani, and my question is directed to Jagdish Murjani. Jaggi, I really enjoyed listening to everyone, but when you were speaking, you made a couple of points, and my question arises from 2 points that you made. One is you made the point about how, from an Indian perspective, the export of our talent in the field of computer programming and software to various parts of the world is like our oil. But you also made the point about how artificial intelligence is bringing in and will bring in huge redundancy in terms of human capital and labor, because those functions are going to be substituted with AI. When I take these two of your points together, in the long run, is there a risk that with the advent of AI, we will lose our unique human capital advantage and the export that we provide of human capital? Because what India is providing to the West, to large parts of the Western economy in terms of our skill set, will be replaced by AI and the very redundancy that you spoke of. And is that therefore a concern or an impact that AI can have on that part of our service export sector?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, Sharan, because if you look at the whole export of IT services, right, that $200 billion which comes into India, it leads to so much consumption, it leads to indirect jobs, it leads to housing loans, it leads to houses getting constructed, it leads to cars getting sold, and there is just so much of a kind of positive economic effect. So I think the question that you have asked is a question that the industry is kind of asking itself every day. There are different answers. I gave an example of a CEO of one of the top companies, HCI Tech, where he described how he sees 70% of the jobs, really in some ways being at some degree of risk as AI evolves. I think that the real focus of the industry will be, and it already is, to train the entire Indian workforce to be able to leverage all of these, developments and advances in technology, so that productivity increases, our ability to stay, even more relevant becomes, even higher. But there is no doubt that as these technologies kind of, become more mainstream, and they are already becoming mainstream, it is going to cause many interesting shifts in the industry about, who are the kind of technology professionals who become more valuable and relevant, and who are the folks who will kind of become, less relevant because of these, changes. To go back to Milan's example, when electricity was invented, then the candle makers certainly would have become less relevant because you now had the light bulb in 1880 or whenever. If you go back to the legal profession, right, like Bala said, there will be many things which today lawyers carry out, which a computer or an AI-based technology will be able to carry out. It's no different than earlier, right? A law firm may have had to have an army of typists because you were typing drafts again and again and again. And then with the advent of computers, the number of typists required would have just come down. So even here, the lawyers who are really skilled, they will be able to add even more value, because some of the, the lower end work, so to say, will kind of get automated. And then there will be lawyers who don't possess the ability to kind of add that value at all. So they will need to get trained so that they can kind of, add that value and contribute. So I think it's a very interesting shift which is happening. But my point, which is exactly what you said, right, that this shift, so India may have like whatever, in a population of 140 crores, we might have 50-60 crore people in the workforce. But this set of 5 million people who bring in $200 billion of revenues, it will be very interesting to see what happens with this small segment of people who have such a huge economic impact.
Just to add to what your point was, given that we still have an advantage of English speaking, given that we still have an advantage of probably the maximum number of, say, software technology professionals in the world, the upskilling of those professions, including what the government is doing, right, National Skills Development Mission, including AI in the universities, I am sensing that the amount of work required to, effort required to upskill is probably lesser compared to many other countries out there. So we will still have the advantage if we were to upskill the existing folks and still be the so-called software factory to the world.
One last question now.
This is Shobha Jagtiani. This is a question for Milind. Milind, you forgot to mention, it's an observation actually, that China was the first country to land the man on the moon. And that is because Mao Zedong told his countrymen that it was the Chinese who first went to the moon, and there were no newspapers, there was no press. It was an Iron Curtain country, so there was no truth. So that was what was happening then. So this is for Anand. Make sure you don't go out of existence as a newspaper, no matter what AI does. It's unfair that AI has safe harbor rules, but maybe not for long, and the print media and the newspaper does not. Now, just one more thing for Anand. I read about your ideas exchange with Mr. John Chambers, who's heading the Partnership Forum for India-US. And Milind outlined how far China is in the race. What was your takeaway about India-US collaboration in the field of AI?
I'll just reflect what John Chambers said and what I've been picking up. John Chambers went a step ahead. He said AI is America, India. So he took it to a new level. But I think there's a lot of optimism when it comes to the tech sharing, the knowledge sharing between technology companies between America and India. And I think that, I actually, and the aggression with which I've been hearing the last 2 years, our semiconductor ideas, our whole sort of the upskilling happening apparently within all the Infis and the TCSs of India. So I'm actually quite optimistic about us kind of being at the right end of the AI stick. From whatever I know, it sounds like at least all the efforts are being made. I think we have learned from our mistakes of the past of being slow with these things. That's fundamentally, but I feel like we're all now, we're just much more ambitious people. I don't know, and we just kind of, we like taking risks compared to earlier. And China is shooting itself in the foot all the time. That helps us.
On the whole regulatory piece, there was a very interesting podcast that I saw. In fact, it was Anushka Jagtiani's podcast, where she had interviewed Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who is the present IT minister. And a lot of the issues that he brought out, including, for example, stuff related to the safe harbor, stuff related to the responsibility of platforms. It was a very interesting discussion on, many of, those topics. So, folks in the audience who kind of want to, understand more, the minister actually shared his perspective on a lot of those points. Yeah.
Well, thank you all very, very much. And I'll now hand it back over to the management to conclude the proceedings for today.
With that, we come to the end of the panel discussion for the evening. We must once again applaud all our panelists as well as our moderator for a thought-provoking discussion. Ms. Vidula Barze, the General Secretary of the Moot Court Association of JLC Mumbai, has been a constant pillar of support and guidance to the entire committee. The success of this panel discussion can be attributed to her and the Assistant General Secretary, Ms. Drishti Patrawala's dedication and perseverance. Through their leadership, the Moot Court Association has achieved higher standards of excellence in all of its endeavors. On that note, I would now like to request Ms. Barze, the General Secretary of the Moot Court Association of GLC Mumbai, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Tanisha. Ladies and gentlemen, as the curtains close on this enlightening panel discussion today, I stand before you filled with immense gratitude on behalf of the entire Moot Court Association of GLC Mumbai. It is an honor and privilege of the Moot Court Association to host this panel discussion on the occasion of the 25th edition of the DM Harish Moot. A very big thank you to all the panelists, Mr. Harish Jaktiani, Mr. Milind Devra, Mr. Anand Goenka, Dr. Prasad Karante, Mr. Jagdish Moorjani, Professor Kishu Daswani, and Mr. Anantaraman Balakrishnan for his captivating contributions to the panel discussion. Today, the panelists' insightful contributions have highlighted the importance of the topic in this day and age by providing a wide range of perspectives on the ethical, privacy, and legal benefits and the risks of artificial intelligence. The depth of understanding required for today's discourse, both in terms of the subject matter as well as the legal implications, has been effectively navigated thanks to their valuable insights, enhancing the experience of all the participants. I would also like to take a moment and thank Senior Advocate Harish Jaktiani, who has led such an informative and thought-provoking discussion with his expertise and utmost enthusiasm. Furthermore, I wanted to express my immense gratitude to the Harish family and the Jaktiani family, particularly Mr. Anil Harish, Mr. Aliraj Harish, and Mrs. Shobha Jaktiani, who have been an unyielding support and cooperation in the organization of this event. I also want to thank our professor in charge, Nuzat Sheikh, and our principal, Dr. Asmita Vaidya, who has constantly been dedicated to making this event a success. And this event would not have been what it is without the unwavering efforts of the members of the Moot Court Association, who have worked tirelessly to make this competition happen. It has been a great privilege for me to serve as the General Secretary of the Moot Court Association for the past year. Looking back at my journey as a part of the MCA, it has been nothing but an enriching and a fruitful experience. As this moot marks the end of its academic year of the MCA, I wish the upcoming members to continue the long-standing legacy of this committee and make the most out of their experience. I hope all the teams that have come here today have found this to be an enriching experience, and I wish everyone the best of luck for the upcoming rounds tomorrow. I would like to request everyone to please rise for the national anthem.
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
And the audience members to kindly remain seated while we escort the dignitaries. Thank you so much.